"You don't even behave like a real man," my father scoffed, pointing his fork at me. "You're completely right," I replied calmly. "That's why I'm finished paying for everyone at this table." Then I stood up and walked out, leaving my whole family behind. I never expected my breaking point to arrive during dinner at an overpriced steakhouse, but life has a way of pushing you when you least foresee it. That night, we were all gathered at a long table, with my parents at the center like royalty and my siblings scattered around, vying for their attention. And I, the eldest son, quietly bore the unspoken weight of everyone's expectations. I had always been a reliable one, the one who paid the bills when my dad's business efforts failed repeatedly. I was the one who rescued my sister when she accumulated credit card debt, chasing a lifestyle inspired by some Instagram influencer. I bought birthday gifts for nieces and nephews whose names I could hardly recall because I was always too busy working 2 jobs to support everyone else. They called it family. I called it servitude. The evening began with a forced cheerfulness, laughter that didn't quite reach the eyes, compliments that felt like hidden insults. My mom remarked on how tired I looked, then immediately suggested I should start exercising again. My brother inquired about work, but barely listened before shifting back to his new cryptocurrency scheme. My sister ordered the priciest wine on the menu and smiled at me as if she already knew I'd be the one paying for it. I stayed silent. I always did, until my dad decided to speak up. "You don't even act like a man," he said, pointing his fork at me as if it were a weapon, a piece of steak dangling from it, glistening with juices. Yet, his words contained more venom than what was on his plate. Everyone fell silent. That's the thing about my dad. He never had to raise his voice to hurt you. Just a few carefully chosen words laced with a smug judgment, worn like a badge of honor. I had spent years seeking his approval, wondering perhaps I was a failure he believed me to be. But something snapped inside me that night. Maybe it was the years of unappreciated sacrifices. Maybe it was the way my siblings smirked instead of standing up for me. Maybe it was the sheer nerve of being insulted after I had spent my last bonus to make this dinner happen. Or maybe I was simply exhausted from pretending this was normal, tired of being a family's financial support, tired of being invisible unless someone needed something. "You're absolutely right," I said, my voice steady yet cold. "That's why I'm finished paying for everyone at this table." I stood up, no drama, no shouting, just a finality. I placed my napkin on the table, pulled out my wallet, and dropped a few bills to cover my meal. My mother gasped as if I had just confessed to a crime. My sister's expression twisted into a frown. My brother leaned back, wide-eyed, as if I had broken some long-standing family code. But it was my dad's look that lingered with me. He didn't seem angry. He seemed confused, as if for the first time he had no idea how to respond to me. I walked out. At first it felt surreal, like I was in a dream or a scene from a film. The restaurant lights dimmed behind me. The noise faded, and suddenly I was outside in the cold, coat over one arm, realizing I had just walked away from everything I thought I needed to hold on to. But here's the twist. I didn't feel guilt. I felt relief. A strange, heavy silence enveloped me. Instead of suffocating me, it felt liberating. That night, I didn't return home. I booked a hotel room downtown and sat on the bed, staring at the ceiling for hours. My phone buzzed continuously. Missed calls from my mom, furious texts from my sister, vague attempts from my brother to mediate. I didn't reply to any of them. I couldn't, because I knew they would pull me back in with guilt, manipulation, and the illusion of love. Maybe I was finally ready to see them for what they were. Not a family, but a group of individuals who had become too comfortable leeching off me. I thought I was helping them, but the truth was I had enabled them, allowing them to cast me as both provider and the punching bag. I was the scapegoat whenever things went wrong, the ATM when they needed a favor. Somewhere along the line, I stopped being a person and became a tool. And now that I had finally refused to play that role, their true selves were showing. Things took a serious turn the next morning when I received a call, not from my family, but from my father's lawyer. Apparently, my dad had made some decisions without my knowledge over the past year. Financial decisions that involved my name, my credit, and unbelievably my signature. I was shocked. I hadn't signed anything, but the lawyer insisted I had. According to the documents, I was listed as a guarantor on a huge loan that my dad had defaulted on just weeks earlier. It hit me like a freight train. Walking away from that dinner wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a storm I never anticipated. The voice on the other end was calm, professional, and completely detached from the chaos it was about to unleash on my life. The lawyer, a guy named Raymond, Said he was calling to give me a heads up about formal notices being sent to my address because the bank was preparing to take legal action. I laughed, not because it was amusing, but because it felt utterly ridiculous. I hadn't co-signed anything. I hadn't agreed to any loans. I hadn't even discussed money with my father beyond constantly refusing to give him more. And yet, here I was, being told I was responsible for a $130,000 business loan that had defaulted, with my name signed neatly on documents I had never seen. I drove straight to the law office, not even bothering to change out the hoodie and jeans I had slept in. When I arrived, I was shown into a quiet conference room and handed a thick folder. Flipping through it, my heart raced. There was my name, my social security number, my forged signature on pages of paperwork that made it look like I had willingly attached myself to my father's sinking ship. Raymond watched me from across the table, like I was about to explode. And honestly, I was not in a fit of rage or violence, but in that slow implosion way where everything you believe crumbles around you. I couldn't believe it. My own father had stolen my identity, used my information to secure a loan, and then let it rot. To make matters worse, the loan wasn't for a noble cause or an attempt to save a failing family business. It was for a luxury car dealership venture he had started with one of his shady friends, a scheme I had warned him about a year earlier. He had laughed me off, claiming I didn't understand risk, that I was too soft and careful. Now that risk was about to ruin my credit, deplete my savings, and possibly drag me into court. And he hadn't even bothered to give me a warning. No apology, no heads up, just a landmine dropped into my life while he played the part of Father of the Year at family dinners. I left the office in shock, clutching the folder like it was a death sentence. My phone vibrated again. This time it was a message from my mother, simply saying, "Call your father. He's upset." Upset. Not sorry, not explaining, just upset, as if he was a victim, as if my reaction to being betrayed and financially sabotaged was a true offense. That was when everything became clear. I realized that walking out of that dinner hadn't been selfish. It was essential. My whole life, I had mistaken tolerance for loyalty. I thought being there for my family meant letting them drain me, but that was over. I went home that evening to the same apartment I had worked hard to afford on my own. I made a decision I never thought I would have the courage to follow through on. I hired a lawyer, a very good one. I showed him the forged documents and provided every email, text, and call log that could prove I had no knowledge of the loan. He said it would take time, but I had a strong case, not just to clear my name, but to file criminal charges if I chose. At first, I hesitated. I didn't want to send my own father to prison, but then I thought about the years I had spent being used. The thousands of dollars I poured into a family that treated me like an ATM. The lies, the manipulation, the emotional abuse disguised as tough love. I knew what I had to do. The fallout came quickly. When my father learned I was pressing charges, he lost it, calling me every name imaginable and claiming I was ruining the family. My mother begged me to drop it, saying we could handle it quietly. My sister accused me of being dramatic, while my brother tried to mediate again, asking if I really wanted to destroy our family over a loan. But they didn't understand. I hadn't destroyed anything. I had merely stopped enabling the destruction they had caused for years. The truth was, our family had been broken long before I walked out of that restaurant. I was just the only one brave enough to stop pretending otherwise. The case dragged on for months. I had to sift through financial records, testify in meetings, and endure endless voicemails from my parents, swinging between denial and desperation. But eventually, justice prevailed. The court ruled in my favor. The loan was removed from my credit. My father was charged with fraud. He accepted a plea deal and avoided jail, but the damage to his reputation was irreversible. He lost whatever business credibility he had left, and ultimately, he lost me for good. I changed my number, moved to a new place, and accepted a promotion in another state that I had previously turned down because I didn't want to leave my family behind. Now I realized they had never really been my support. They were the chains holding me down. Once I broke free, I could finally breathe. It's been a year since that dinner, and I haven't spoken to any of them since. You know what? I'm not sad. I'm not angry. I'm just free. I used to think that walking away from your family was the worst thing you could do. But sometimes it's the most important thing, because blood isn't thicker than self-respect. No one gets to weaponize love to keep you broken. So yes, I didn't act like the man my father wanted me to be. I acted like the man I needed to become, and I've never looked back.